So the first topic is strategy maps. And for this topic, I've got to go back in time to 1996. As a matter of fact, I think all our topics today are going back to the mid 90s. So this is a little bit of a retrospective. And in 1996, Norton and Kaplan released a book called The Balanced Scorecard. And I was a strategy consultant at the time. And pretty much every one of us was given a copy of this book, and we were using it for our clients in terms of developing balanced scorecards. If you're not familiar with what a balanced scorecard is, the idea is that instead of just having basic profitability metrics, you try to come up with metrics that have a more holistic view and really take a look at what the firm's vision and goals and mission are as you're developing those scorecards. So instead of just saying, let's say, for example, profitability, you might look more holistically and you might say, well, expense management, we can have metrics around our expenses, but what about in terms of our investment metrics? So how do we keep our run the bank costs, run the firm costs, one thing, I was in banking for 25 years, run the firm costs one place, but our grow the firm costs, we may want to actually be growing. And so how do we balance that? And so that's the idea behind a balanced scorecard. And you look much more holistically than just financial metrics. You also look at customer metrics. You also look at people metrics. You can look at branding and marketing, et cetera. So that's the idea behind a balanced scorecard. And one of the tools they released in this book was also called the strategy map. And the idea behind the strategy map is that everything filters down from your ultimate goal. Now, also happening in the 90s at the same time was this big push for shareholder value creation. And it's since become quite controversial. As a matter of fact, even the late Jack Welch has come out and said, I think something along the lines of, it was the stupidest idea ever created. So if you think shareholder value creation is not controversial, take a look on Google and see what you can find. But back in 1996, it was the be-all end-all, and tons of consultants. As a matter of fact, there were consulting firms that was all they did was generate shareholder value creation projects for their clients. The idea behind the strategy map is what you can see here on the screen, is that you start from the financial perspective. So you start from productivity metrics, you start from revenue and growth, and from there you think about what the elements of that are. So if revenue from new products is part of your revenue growth strategy, then what falls below that in terms of revenue from new products? And you would first look at the customer's perspective. So then you would look at your markets, you would look at your customer segments, and so on and so forth. And it all fed the balanced scorecard, as I explained earlier, right? And then you would go down a layer and you would say, well, what about internally? How are we set up for success? So what are our metrics on customer management or innovation or sales quality and sales capability, right? And you would then build your internal organization metrics around that, always all to flow up to the top. Now, over the years, I ended up adapting these strategy maps to businesses that I worked for the purpose of helping people within my organization connect to what my top goal was. So I would look at whatever business or division or product area I was running, and I would put the ultimate goal at the top. And then I would start cascading from there in order to be able to get to the point where I could have all the functions, particularly as a chief operating officer, I cared about all the functions contributing, where I would be able to say, okay, human resources, here's your role in managing people, and here's how it flows upward to the top of the strategy map. My head of marketing and communications, here's your role, and here's how it flows up towards the top of the strategy map, etc. Right? So that everyone in the organization could look at the strategy map, different from an org chart. It's a value-based chart, right? So it was able to see, where do I fit into the organization in order to achieve the top goal? That's how a strategy map works. I modified it over the years to create a more simplified one and to make sure that at the base, I started with each of the organizations. I also had a foundational layer, which said, what are our competencies? What are our skills? What are our strengths that and here they had it as learning and growth perspective, but what do we really have that we can use to overcome challenges as they will arise? So eventually what I figured out was that not only could you just do this for your organization, but that you could do it for yourself. You could do it for any purpose. As a matter of fact, we'll end on this note, but I'll give you the preview. Every single model I've ever encountered for a company, you're able to actually use it for yourself. So we'll come back to that, but that's my premise. So what I did was I created my own tool that I refer to as Value Bricks. And Value Bricks, it actually started playing Lego with my children. We were talking about, I was trying to explain profitability by saying, well, here's 10 revenue bricks and here's 8 expense bricks. And what do you have when you snap them all together? You have 2 bricks left over. And so I started thinking just about how strategy maps were about building and how my version of strategy maps were about building from the bottom up. And so I have 2 examples of what I call the value bricks, which you can see came from the strategy maps. So in this example, the first one starts with, okay, my own personal ambition. What I've done here is layered on the elements of the career master plan. So you can see how it influences the career master plan. I start at the top with ambition: to run the most profitable business in my firm while enjoying my life. Okay, create ambition. And then you break that down, all right, to run the most profitable business while enjoying my life. Well, that means I have to have a good client, I have to have a good customer strategy. As a matter of fact, my destination might be to have the most robust, most effective, highest value creating customer strategy ever, right? So that might be my destination statement, my vision statement. And then revenues, expenses are obviously the elements of most profitable, right? So I could say, okay, well, what does most profitable mean to me? And being most specific, we want to make, $50 million in profits this year, right? And break it down from there. And balanced life. Now, I've obviously gone through modules worth of work to know what balanced life means for me. And then I would take it one layer below. So then I would say, okay, well, how do I break down customer strategy? Well, I have the opportunity to interface with my customers, to get to know them. And that includes doing market research, engaging direct customer engagement, running pilots, and running prototypes. Those actions start to form my 30, 60, 90-day plans. And then let's slip all the way over to the right-hand side, balanced life. In order to have a balanced life, I need to prioritize what matters to me. Well, for me, it's family, friends, and health. What are the actions that fall within each of those, and how do I put them into my 30, 60, 90-day strategy plans? Also, part of balanced life might be getting help, getting assistance, and with childcare, having a good team, making sure I'm recruiting and growing and developing my team, getting coaching support, and then what are the actions that go with that? So the reason I thought of sharing this with you, and then at the bottom you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the supporting strengths and the roadblocks, which also fall into the career master plan when you talked about our purpose, or even in strategy where we leverage our strengths, and on the roadblocks when we talk about challenges and derailers. So when we've gone through all of those exercises around superheroes and toolbox, know what your supporting strengths are, because they're always going to be there for you in terms of being able to use those when roadblocks arise. So a little bit more of a visual version. And the reason I wanted to share it was because you'll be happy to know that literally every single one of you is still working on your ambition statement. So none of you should feel left out, unless in the last few days you've been able to figure it out. But over the last 10 days, every single one of you has told me that you're still working on crafting your ambition statement. And so I felt, okay, well, here's another tool that might help you. Some of us talked about the idea of promoting and demoting items. When you take a stab at writing your ambition statement, there may be items that you end up saying, well, maybe it doesn't fall really in my ambition statement, but maybe it's down in the supporting framework of the master plan. And sometimes it's a feel thing. Sometimes it's just how it feels to you. But the value bricks is an additional thing that you can do that might help you say, okay, how do all the pieces fit together? How do these elements of value fit together? And even who are some of the players in here? Because as you can see here, when I said get help, and I have childcare and a good team and a coaching, as a supporting framework, those are people, right? So whoever my childcare is, whether that's a partner or whether that's a babysitter or parents or whatever it might be, whoever my team is that's supporting me in terms of the team that I recruit and the resources that I have, and my coach or my peers or my mentors or whoever I use, there are people associated with this. So then I know where they fit into my master plan as well. So that's the idea behind the value bricks. And that was one example. I'm going to give you another example just so that you can see how it plays out. This example is to be recognized as a thought leader and innovator in my industry. So again, I pick on those keywords. So recognized, okay, recognized means I have to build a personal brand, but I want to be known as a thought leader and innovator in the industry. So then I need to think about how I constantly innovate, and I need to think about my positioning within the industry. So on innovating, we'll drive down the middle here. Then that might mean, okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm innovating, that I'm constantly researching. How do I stay in contact with the right experts or periodicals or organizations? And how do I have innovation partnerships? Maybe I need to partner with influencers or people that complement me, so I can be innovative in a particular area, but maybe I'm not strong in another area that someone else is. So like for me personally, I'm all about the future of work, right? So I spend a lot of time really making sure that I understand. I have partnerships with people that are in the tech space, in prop tech, in human tech, in fintech, in areas that influence the workplaces that I'm constantly trying to innovate. So I make sure that I have a lot of partnerships. I'm not going to be an expert in terms of human tech, but I have partnerships in that area. So that's the idea there. And so your value bricks or your personal strategy map build down from there. And this is another way to play with developing your career master plan. So that's the idea there. And as I started, when I said to you that every framework that I have seen for working on particularly the strategic level for companies can be adapted for individuals. If you just think about ones that you've been taught, so SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, of course you can do that as an individual. Even BCG growth matrix, you can really, it's a little bit harder, but you can think about yourself and say, okay, well, what are the cash cows for me? What are the things that I'm really good at that I can do constantly over and over again and get paid for? Versus what are the things I should just not waste my time doing? Those were the dogs in that model, et cetera. Any kind of 2x2, anytime there's a 2x2 for a company is really just an organization full of people. And operates as its own organism. So individuals can use those models. You have to be creative in terms of how you play with some of the words. And so I'll give you one final example in this topic of how you do that. The management guru, Peter Drucker, has so many different frameworks, but one of his more simple ones is, and I love 3, 4, 5. If you can do something in 3, 4, or 5, I'm all over that. I'll go as high as 6, but this is my sweet spot. 5 questions to ask. And to Peter Drucker, this wasn't in a book. I think this was in a white paper he had done. But I've used it for years and years, right? What is our mission? Who is our customer? What does our customer value? What are our results? And what is our plan? Now, on the surface, that sounds very much like we're talking about a company and you're not talking about an individual. But again, if you switch the wording just a bit, so you say, okay, what is my mission, right? What is my ambition? What is my vision? Where am I going? What am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to accomplish? That can be quite personal. Who is our customer? Okay, well, who am I serving? Who am I serving, not just as a customer, but who in the world? Who in the world am I connected to that I have a service model to, right? And that can be self, by the way, as well. You can be your own customer when you're thinking about yourself and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. So think about primary customers and secondary customers in a business framework. You can think about the same thing in terms of yourself. So it could be partner, it could be family, it could be children, it could be friends, it could be self. So it could be your community, the people that you interact with in your community. What does that customer value? The customers that you care about, that you're looking to serve and that you're looking to connect with and contribute to, what are they valuing? And what are our results? So what do you as an individual try to accomplish both in the short term and in the long term? What do you produce? What do you produce now? And what are you striving and driving to produce? Products, services that you offer to the world, that you offer to the customers and the people in your life. And then what is your plan? Obviously, we spent an entire last module thinking about planning. In Drucker's paper, he actually says planning should be comprehensive, but no more than 5 goals. So I think that's one of the good reminders, is that you can only do so much at one time. And that's one of the reasons why I had said everyone should try to filter down. You don't want to try to have goals across all of the different aspects of the life wheel. You really want to make sure that you try to hone in on 1, 2, max 3 areas as you're trying to develop what are your plans in that space. So have fun with this. Pick up any model that you've been taught with respect to business and see if you can do it for yourself. Figure out how to make it a framework that you could use for yourself, for individuals, to make it from a company to an individual. I think it's a lot of fun, and it helps create some new insights. And over the years, I have done this with a ton of different frameworks in order to adapt the different tools and techniques and tips that I use in coaching.